So I have now started the recording, and I'm going to do an introduction of myself and also Courtney, and then I'm going to hand it over to Emily, who is our speaker. So my name is Kim Sherman Labrum. I am the training coordinator for the Small Business Development Center working out of Boise, Idaho. And I also am a business consultant that focuses on digital media marketing and assets. So I usually talk to people about their online presence, social media, anything that has to do with being online. I probably answered a question or two about it. So with that, the SBDC is a resource for you as a small business owner or want to be a small business owner. And you are all here because I'm assuming that you want to be business owners or that you already are and you're looking to maybe pivot what you're doing for whatever reason. Perhaps in light of what's currently going on nationally with COVID-19, maybe it's just that time of life. And so that's why we're offering this training. And so the SBDC exists to help you as a small business owner. And we do that through a core set of services. And those are free one-on-one confidential consulting. And right at the moment, we're doing all of our consulting virtually, like this. So we do it through the Zoom platform, and it's still confidential and we still get to talk. If you're not familiar with Zoom or you don't want to do it, phone and email is also available, but it's nice to be able to see faces and connect that way. We also offer trainings, some of which we do in-house with our staff and some of which we go to outside experts, some of which you're about to experience, the fabulous Emily Anderson from FranNet. And so when we are not subject matter experts ourselves, we go out and find somebody who is to talk about these types of issues that small businesses run into. And that being said, this session is co-sponsored by the City of Mountain Home. Courtney Lewis and her staff at the office of the City of Mountain Home were kind enough to contact me and say, hey, we'd really like to offer up something for the businesses in Mountain Home. And we actually have a whole series of classes coming up. It's every other Thursday. This is the second session. We have one coming up on, best practices for work for home, and also, what kind of website might be best for you. I think that's the next one that we have coming up. We're going to have something on social media. And you might guess who's going to be teaching that class, potentially. So that being said, it is time. I talked 3 whole minutes, so I'm going to let Emily take over because it's her turn. And she's far more interesting than I am, and she's got good stuff, and you came to listen to her anyway. So Emily, it is now you. I will pin your video and then turn mine off, and I'll be monitoring chat. So everybody, if you want to send me a chat and whatnot, please do, but your microphones will be off until we open it up for discussion later. All right, you are pinned.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks for the introduction. And really, I want to acknowledge you and the Small Business Development Center for being such a phenomenal resource for business owners and aspiring business owners. Thanks for putting this together, as well as the City of Mountain Home. So everybody, welcome. My name's Emily Anderson. We've got a lot to talk about today. Our content is going to be about an hour, even though this session was booked for 90 minutes. At the end of this, the content, if you have any questions, actually, while they're fresh in your head, just go ahead and type them into the chat box. And then once we're done presenting all this content, we can address any questions, have some dialogue. I really respect your time and your energy and that you're spending it with us today. And I want to make sure that you get what you need. So today, as we're talking about going from an employee to an entrepreneur, I like to be really transparent with the lens through which I view and bring this information. So I am a 3rd-generation entrepreneur. Doesn't mean I came from this long line of really big, successful business owners. My grandpa was a catcher for the Portland Beavers back in the day. And when his baseball days were over, he started a business. My dad, when he was 25 years old, built a fence for someone. He lost $500 on his first job, and this was about 50 years ago, so I can't imagine what $500 looks like today. but he learned a lot, and he started a fencing business, became a lumber broker, had a very successful business that he sold and retired when he was in his early 50s. And as for me, I've also been a small business owner. I have also done the corporate thing. I worked for small family-owned businesses. I worked at a Silicon Valley startup for about 6 months back in the heyday, which was really exciting until the venture capitalists pulled their funding. And I've been in the franchise industry for about the last 7 years. So I've worn many different hats, if you will. And here's what we're going to talk about. There's an elephant in the room, and it's called COVID-19. We're not going to skirt around that. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about why even consider business ownership in the first place, different options for getting into business ownership. There's 3 specific options that we're going to talk about, and the advantages and the disadvantages of each. I don't believe that any one path is better than another. It's ultimately about knowing the paths and identifying which one might make the most sense for you. Risks of business ownership, rewards of business ownership. We're going to spend a little bit more time on franchising, simply because I think franchise ownership is the most misunderstood and overlooked of the 3 entrepreneurial paths. So we're going to talk about some myths and realities, how to identify the best business option for you, and how to build your personal business model. And if you are one of the tens of thousands of people that have recently been laid off, I'm sorry. I'm glad you're here. I pause because many, many people pursue entrepreneurship after a layoff. It's very, very common. However, the strategy and the approach that we take to looking for a job is very, very different than the strategy and the approach that we use for looking for a business. So if you are one of the many people that is in a transition, and frankly, you might be looking for a job and looking for a business simultaneously and see what pans out. These are 2 different beasts, and we're going to talk about the best strategies for business searching. Who am I? Who's FranNet, the organization I'm with? We've been around for 32 years, and there's over 100 of us across the country, and we work on a local level, even though today I'm actually remoting in from Bend, but I serve the Boise area, and I understand the personality, the nuances of Boise and surrounding areas and other areas of Idaho. It's important to know what kind of businesses our communities will support. I mean, just because a business is very successful in Southern California doesn't mean it's going to be really successful in Meridian, right? So we want to make sure that we're providing you the local insights. We have national partnerships with SCORE and SBDC, so we actually provide all the education and content for these people. What we do is we match people to businesses and franchises, and my services are free. I'm actually paid by the industry because of the processes and the systems we use. We tend to provide the highest quality candidates to the highest quality businesses and boutique franchises. So feel free to use me as a resource. I also really see myself as an advocate. Business ownership is not for everyone. And I'm not here to convince you that it's right for you. I don't know. My role is to advocate on your behalf, to help you access and make sense of information so that you can make a well-informed decision, no matter what that is, as long as it's in the best interest of you and your family. So I work with highly qualified or high value, pre-screened boutique franchise concepts, and I provide education, advocacy, and consultation for individuals. And when it makes sense, I make a match. We're going to start right off in the deep end, guys. All right. So let's talk about COVID-19. This is not our first rodeo. And forgive me if this sounds insensitive, because I get it. In many ways, we've never seen anything like COVID-19. I actually spoke with a past client who's owned his staffing business that he found with us. He's owned it for about 5 years. And he said, nobody saw the zombies at the gate, right? Nobody saw this coming. However, we saw the dot-com bust. We saw 9/11. We saw the Great Recession. We have at FranNet, we've seen all of this. So that's what those were in the past. Today, the latest and greatest beast, the zombie at the gate, is COVID-19. And consistently during these uncertain times, this tends to be where people start to focus. Recession-resistant industries, which now I would take to another level in what we call essential services. These are businesses that are essentially low cost, low overhead, service-based businesses. We've got a lot of data. We did a lot of placements, for example, around 2008. And these are the businesses and industries that where not only people survived, but they really thrived in any economic time. And I wanted to share a survey, some survey results with you, just so you can see what other people are thinking around business ownership in the economy today. About 54% said, yeah, I think now is a good time to start a business. 59%, okay, obviously these are not going to add up to 100%, and you'll see why. 59% expect to start a business within the next 3 months. 17% are thinking, no, not the next 3 months, maybe 4 to 6 months would be better. 39% believe the business conditions will improve in 3 months. However, 24.3% believe that business conditions will worsen. And 18% are pretty much putting their research or their startup on hold. They're hitting the brakes. So this is how other people are responding out there. Now, myself with my client base and my FranNet colleagues across the country, this is what we're seeing, and this is how we're seeing our clients use this time. And you get to decide what makes the most sense for you. Is some people, and this might be that 18% that we just saw, some people are hitting the brakes when it comes to starting a business or even researching a business. And I get it. This isn't for everyone. Now might not be the time for you. And I spoke with someone just yesterday and they said, we're going to see what things look like in 6 months. I get it. Some people, they're just kind of tapping the brakes, we'll call this proceed with caution, if you will. And they're continuing their research or their due diligence, and they're utilizing this time just to be extra thorough in accessing and making sense of their information. And these are people that are saying, yeah, I just need a little bit more clarity before I actually fund or before I actually sign, but I'm getting every single duck in a row so that when I'm ready, I can move forward. Now, here's the thing to ask yourself is, when we're talking about clarity around COVID, when I have more clarity around the situation, then I'll move forward. Well, I just invite you to consider, what does clarity look like for you? And is it realistic? Is it attainable? So for example, if you are in career transition and you're looking for a position and thinking about researching a business at the same time, makes sense. And if for you, clarity around COVID means waiting 1 year after everybody has access to testing and everyone has received the vaccine, you might just want to focus on the job search right now, right? Because you might be researching businesses for years, and what businesses are available in 2 years may not be available today. Okay. So just ask yourself, is it realistic? Otherwise, like my clients that said yesterday, we're thinking 6 months. Yeah, makes sense. Move forward. And then there are others that are just moving full speed ahead, that are saying, this is the time where currently there is pent up demand. And right now, I'm going to take advantage of these record low interest rates. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that there will likely be increased vacancies in 4 to 6 months when I'm going to need to sign a lease, lower costs. The SBA, Kim and I were just talking about this beforehand, the SBA is covering people's payments for 6 months for any SBA loan that is funded by September 27th of this year. So some people are saying, I'm going to take advantage of all of this now. I'm going to prepare now. I have my ducks in a row. And once we open the gates, I will be ready to serve this pent-up demand. Now, one of these is not better than another. It's ultimately about which one makes the most sense for you. And here's what I invite you to consider, is that searching for an opportunity is not the same thing as committing to a purchase. So you can use this time to search, research, conduct due diligence. You will spend time doing it, but you do not need to spend any money until you're sure and until you are ready. So there are lots of changes. This is a very different lending environment than it was about a month ago. These are 3 financing companies that we've worked with. I personally have worked with for years: Benetrends, Guidant Financial, and FranFund. And I invite you to check out their websites, maybe listen in on some of their trainings. I have some trainings actually recorded. Benetrends specifically is doing a training with us on Monday, where they're going to talk about SBA financing, and they're also going to talk about rollover for business startup. I can get you that information. Just make sure you're educated so that you know your options and that you are in control and empowered to make well-informed decisions. And even if you don't know anything about researching businesses or researching franchises, you are entirely in control. And FranNet, we're the only organization that has put in writing that we are 100% committed to serving whatever is in your best interest, whether that means saying yes to business ownership or no to business ownership. Basically, I have your back, okay? So I'm gonna invite you to take a deep breath and use your imagination, which is something that we don't get to use very often as adults. But let's imagine you're the owner of a successful business. How would your life be better? What does that look like? What does that feel like? These are some really common reasons why people explore business ownership. Success, you know, I put that at the top of the list. The truth is that is a very subjective term. So what does success look like to you? Does it look like more fulfillment and flexibility, more independence? I would say the most common phrase I hear from my clients when they start their research is they say, Emily, I want to control my own destiny. So why are we pursuing business ownership? What is it for you? And even though so many people say they would love to own a business someday, most people go work for someone else. Why? Well, here's some common reasons. Risk, I get it. Some people say that a job is safer than a business. Some people say I'm going to wait for the economy to be better. Money, businesses cost money. Do we have enough money? How much money is it going to cost? I don't know where to start. I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know what I don't know. And skills. Do I have the right skill set? I'm going to make a point here real quick, and we're going to dig in deeper at the end. But remember when I told you that looking for a job is very different than looking for a business? Jobs want to know what skills you have. Specific, usually industry-related skills, sometimes transferable skills. Of course, we need skills in business ownership, but there's just a different spin on it, okay? So I'm a stickler for making decisions based on fact and information, not myths and misperceptions. So let's talk about the risk reality as it relates to a job. For those of us age, I don't know, 40 might be young, I'd say maybe age 45 and up, a lot of us started our professions, or at least our working life in an age where there was an opportunity to progress and move up within a company, where there was company loyalty, like the longer we worked for the company, they would take care of us. We might get a gold watch, we might get a good retirement, right? There was kind of a partnership and a sense of loyalty. Well, maybe we played by those rules, but those rules are changing. And what's happening is, even though a job and a paycheck, there's a lot to be said for getting that paycheck every 2 weeks. Simply put, the job tenure is shortening. So whereas people might hold the same position for 10, 20 plus years, my father-in-law worked for the same company for 45 years, right? The job tenures are shortening. And quite frankly, the higher up the corporate ladder you get, the shorter the tenure. The C-suite, what I'm told, is 2.67 years. And for those of us, as we age, we tend to fall under long-term unemployment. So we have a higher skill set, we command a higher salary. There are more and more people competing for fewer and fewer positions. So job security is a thing of the past. What really the focus is on now is income security. Income security, and today we're going to talk about that through business ownership. And we want to, as always, we want to reduce the risk. So let's look at some specific market characteristics and things to consider. If you're thinking about what kind of business or service to provide, remember that professionals still need training. I don't care what's happening in the economy. As parents, we want quality education for our children. Here's a fun fact for you. Just yesterday, I spoke with the founder of a children's early education business that uses music as education and meets curriculum standards from newborns up to 6 years old. They usually do this in person, but yesterday they had their very first virtual session. They had a limit of 500 families that could participate on their Zoom account, and they had 500 families. 500 families. So just think there were probably people that were getting turned away. I don't care about COVID-19. I want to provide for my children. Homeowners still like to fix their homes rather than move. Businesses still need to be maintained. There's one specific franchise that is hitting record numbers because currently they are in offices cleaning, disinfecting, and defogging these offices. And employers outsource and use personnel companies rather than committing to new hires. So these are some considerations of businesses and things that can thrive in just about any economic condition. 3 different paths. And again, I don't advocate one over the other, but I want you to know the advantages and disadvantages to each. So you might look and listen and say, okay, I definitely don't want that, or I definitely am attracted to that. So let's unpack each of these. You can start a business from scratch, brand new. That's what my grandfather and my father did. And I did it for 4 years. My experience is that 4 years into my business, I got to the point where I had to either scale or bail. And I didn't know how to scale. And at the time, I wasn't aware of resources like the SBDC that could have supported me. I didn't know that I had any support, and so I decided to bail. But start a business from scratch, a business acquisition where you can buy an existing business or you can invest in a franchise. So starting a business from scratch, you get total control. You get to do anything and everything. You get to make all the decisions. If you are a creative person and you have ideas, you get to run with it and you get to call the shots. There are no rules. There is a huge upside. And if you have a passion, if there's something that just calls you and you can create a business around it, that might be very, very fulfilling. On the downside, not only do you get to do everything, but you have to do everything. So an example might be someone that wants to start a consulting practice because they love helping other people. Well, if you have your own consulting practice, you also need to spend a lot of time prospecting, screening people in and out, networking, creating systems. How are you going to charge? Tracking payment. And did I say prospecting? Because as consulting practice, there's a lot of prospecting involved. And then will you really get to do the actual thing that you wanted to do in the first place? Are you going to get to consult, or are you too busy having to create all and implement all these other systems? Starting a business from scratch tends to have the fewest financial options. If you go to your local bank because you got a business idea, especially during these times, it's going to be hard to get a loan. They tend to have a slower ramp up. And another way to put that, I would say, is they have the least predictability and statistically have the highest failure rate. So maybe we want to buy an existing business. You know, people love the idea of owning a coffee shop. I don't know what it is. Like, about once a week, I hear somebody say, "Oh, I'd always just wanted to own a coffee shop." Well, maybe you're going to find a coffee shop for sale. And one of the benefits is, theoretically, it's a good business, immediate cash flow. And for some of us, financially speaking, immediate cash flow might be absolutely necessary for us to make the leap into business ownership. There might be goodwill. You know, maybe you are able to access a fantastic resale opportunity that someone is selling for all the right reasons and they're looking for just the right person to hand it down to. I think there's something very psychologically reassuring about getting to see the actual financial results. You get a look at the books. It's more attractive to lenders. You've got existing customers, existing employees, perhaps likely existing systems, and there might be owner financing. On the downside, okay, cash flow. How can cash flow be an advantage of a disadvantage? Here's the thing. When we look at the books, how do we know what is the actual cash flow of the business as opposed to what the owner is running through the business? Yesterday was April 15th. Business owners can get really creative around April 15th. So you, as a prospective buyer, have some insight into the cash flow, but how do we know if what we're seeing is accurate and true? We don't know. Why are they selling? Now, guys, I am a trustworthy person. I mean, I am a trusting person. I like to think I'm trustworthy too, but I'm a trusting person. I just trust people. I generally believe people are good and honest, unless I feel like somebody's trying to sell me something, and then I get very skeptical. But I trust people. That being said, a statistic that was shared with me is that 2 out of every 3 small businesses, and this includes franchises. Franchises are small businesses. 2 out of every 3 are sold to an employee, a family member, or a friend. And that transaction took place without our knowledge. It was never made available to us. So those 1 out of 3 businesses that are listed on a website, for example, those are the businesses where an employee, a family member, or a friend is not buying the business. And that might be for very good reasons. But I can't help but ask myself, why isn't anyone in the know making an offer on this business? Like, what do they know that I don't know? And how can I know? I don't know. If we don't know what the actual cash flow is, because the selling price tends to be based on a multiple, if we don't know what the cash flow is, what is the business actually worth? And it might be overpriced. I mean, especially, I think of my dad's lumber brokerage business. That was his baby. And when I think of the decades that he put into that, I need to ask him, did his asking price reflect an accurate multiple, or did he inflate the price because he was so emotionally invested in the business? If you're buying somebody's baby, that's priceless, right? How are you going to agree on a fair price? There might not be training and support when you take over as owner. I talked about hidden seller motives. Are the employees going to stick around under new ownership? Are the customers going to stick around under new ownership? And these are the areas where we've got more predictability than starting something from scratch because we have a track record of what the business has already done. So there's more predictability than starting a business from scratch, but there's still a lot of unknowns. And frankly, resales tend to have a higher debt service. So there's also the option to invest in a franchise. And a lot of this, I'm guessing you're already familiar with. but there might be a couple of new tidbits of information here. So obviously with a franchise, you get a name recognition, a licensed trademark. Essentially, you get a business system. It kills me that franchise sounds so much like French fries. I don't know about you, but most people, when we hear the word franchise, we think fast food. And franchises are not fast food. Some fast food businesses are franchises, but a franchise is essentially a business system that is available and that other people have executed and replicated and theoretically found success in, that comes with training and support. The amount of training and support varies from franchise to franchise. Franchises statistically have a lower failure rate and can, in the long term, be available at a lower cost. Essentially, it's a more predictable cost and have more financing options. The disclosure, what I have listed here is, so the franchise industry is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. And as this highly regulated industry, there's a lot of information that is available to you, a surprising amount of transparency. And the trick is that most people don't know either where to access the information or what to do with it. Significant resource in franchising is the franchise disclosure document, which all franchise brands are mandated to have and to provide to a prospective candidate. As a matter of fact, by law, you as a potential franchise owner need to have the franchise disclosure document in your physical possession for a certain number of weeks before you are even allowed to sign a franchise agreement, because it's recognized that there's a lot of information and you need to have time to access the information before you can even sign anything, because otherwise it just wouldn't be fair. In that franchise disclosure document, it lists out a lot of information, which I'll get to in a second, but one of the things that it includes is the actual investment cost and a breakdown of, this is how much this business cost, and this is how all of those numbers were broken down. So you get more predictability. Also, franchises have a franchise family. And that used to sound so cheesy to me. I think that a lot of people and a lot of maybe skepticism around franchises is the perception that the franchisor is a bad guy that wants to control you and take your royalties. I'm just gonna be straight, okay? And maybe there are some franchises like that. Not in, a good franchise, but let's say we have a really nice franchisor. I think what people fail to realize is the vast amount of support and connection that is available, not just from the franchisor, but from the other franchisees. So other people that own and operate the exact same business as you in parallel and partnership with you, not in competition, but they do it elsewhere. And you can learn from each other. You can share best practices. You can support each other in your challenges. And I'll give you an example. FranNet is a franchise. And one of the other FranNet franchisees was diagnosed with cancer last year. I know how to successfully run her business. There are over 100 of us across the country that know how to successfully run her business. And when she needed to have surgery, when she needed to take time off, we were there to step in to make sure that her business and her income didn't take a hit when she was going through the hardest time of her life. Now, I'm happy to say that she's in remission and she's doing very well today. But that's what happens when we have a franchise family. It's the idea that somebody has your back. Now that I've painted this oh so rosy picture of franchises, owning a franchise is not the end all be all. There are some disadvantages. There are fewer industry options. So if you have a really unique idea for a business, it may not be available in a franchise. Or maybe you have an idea for a business and it's available in a franchise, but the system isn't the way you would do it. That's just the way it is. Many franchises have structured operating systems. If you would like to use QuickBooks and every other franchisee uses a different operating system, you most likely need to convert and use what everybody uses. And there are territory restrictions. This is kind of the good news, bad news. So most franchises have territory restrictions, which essentially means that they have identified a certain geographical radius or population density that is needed to support a successful business. So for example, so I'm here currently in Bend, Oregon. And if there was a franchise that said, well, we need a minimum population of 200,000 people for us to put a business there, it's not going to be available in Bend, Oregon, right? Franchise might not be available here if I wanted to open it. So that's kind of the downside with territory restrictions. Also, if let's say you wanted to acquire a franchise in Meridian and it's already been awarded to someone else, you might need to decide if you'd be willing to commute further east in Boise because it's already acquired, or maybe you'd want to just not move forward with that franchise and find something that is available in the geographical region that you've targeted. With franchises, for the most part, you can only sell their products. So if your sister-in-law is very sweetly and generously sewing masks and wants you to sell them at your business, that you might not be able to. And of course, there's the ongoing royalty payments. Royalties, sometimes it leaves a bad taste in people's mouth, and I get it. And I'll share my personal insights on royalties here in a minute, just to give a more balanced perspective. So with a franchise, essentially is you get a license to access the winning playbook, is the way I look at it, in exchange for an initial franchise fee and ongoing royalties. It is a distribution channel that you get to create in your local market, where you get to build brand identity, attain market dominance, benefit from other people's knowledge and experience quickly, and really with more predictability. So that government disclosure document, the franchise disclosure document that I mentioned, these are some of the things that are listed in this, multi-hundred page legal document. I'm going to highlight this. So you're going to know what the territory, the obligations, general earnings claims, if there's any renewal or transfer policies, that's going to be literally in black and white available to you before you sign or pay anything. Now, the FDD is also going to include the names and contact information for everyone who currently is or ever has been an owner of that business. And I highly encourage you contact and speak with these people. So I'll try to think of a really common franchise. So Great Clips, let's say Great Clips, it's a hair care franchise. Let's say you've had a couple of conversations with the franchise rep and they're really nice, but they might be a little salesy, right? You know how I feel about those salespeople. Now you're going to take what they've told you, but let's talk to some people that actually own a Great Clips. What would you ask them? What would you want to know? How much time do you spend in the business on a daily basis? How often do you go in? Do you manage it remotely? Do you have a manager running things? How long have they worked for you? How did you find them? Is turnover a problem? I'm looking to replace a 6-figure salary from Micron. Could I do that with one location? 2, 3 locations? How long do you think it would take for me to replace that salary? So you get to talk to all of these people and really hear from them a candid and raw response to your most important questions. So these people will tell you the success, the failure. They will tell you whether the franchisor is fantastic or if they've been selling you on something, right? This type of transparency and information is not available in the other business ownership options. So, something to think about. A couple of trends. I'd like to point this out since most people think of fast food. These are some franchise trends, light manufacturing. A great example would be sign and graphics. So any business where you create a raw, tangible product on site. So things are obviously quiet right now, but guess what? In a couple of months, we're going to see 4th of July signs, everywhere, and then back to school, and then happy Halloween, happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, right? The end of the holiday sale. I mean, just everywhere you look, there are signs. So this is an example of a recession-resistant industry. And for whatever reason, let me go back. For whatever reason, light manufacturing tends to sell for a higher multiple. So if you have a specific strategy in mind where you want to grow and scale a business, sell it at X number of years and get as high of a multiple as you can, you might want to consider light manufacturing. Small business support. So think of all the small businesses in Idaho that don't have an in-house IT department or marketing department. So a small business that supports other small businesses is a huge trend. Senior care and support. We've got 8,000 to 10,000 people turning 65 every day, although these are the most active 65-year-olds I've seen. And the spectrum of support that these senior care businesses provide, it is in fact a spectrum, a continuum, and there's actually a significant variety. There are master franchises where you might oversee the development of the entire state of Idaho and coach and train and participate in the onboarding of other franchisees in that area in exchange for a split of their royalties. Home improvement, windows, home maintenance, damage restoration. You guys, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I had 3 homeowners insurance claims in 18 months due to broken pipes and water damage. And here's the thing about home improvement. I don't care about COVID-19. When my basement is flooding, my homeowner's insurance is going to pay for it, and I'm going to get it taken care of. And then I'd like to pause and talk about semi-absentee ownership. This has been a huge, I don't even know if I can call it a trend. It's been going on so long, and yet the general public doesn't seem to be aware of this as an option. So semi-absentee franchises are great if you are looking to invest in a model and maybe manage a manager to oversee the daily operations. As the investor, it usually just requires more of a part-time effort on you. What's customary of these locations or these businesses is that they are location based. So any business that has a storefront, a physical or retail location where there's a manager inside that typically manages the employees, executes the marketing campaigns, and you can maintain a full-time position and just quietly run this on the side, where essentially your job is to manage the managers. It's highly scalable by adding additional locations. You run it remotely, everything is cloud-based. However, semi-absentee businesses, because they are location-based, they have higher overhead, they might have a higher investment than other service-based businesses. So semi-absentee businesses might start with a total investment of about $200 all in. That doesn't mean you need $200,000. I'll talk about what you need, but just think of like the overhead requires a larger investment. Let's talk about some myths. I already talked about this. Franchising is not French fries. Basically, there are over 90 industries. Actually, the latest I've heard is that there's 4,000 different franchise companies. Some people think that franchises are successful because of the high quality product. Really? I'm guessing you can make a hamburger better than McDonald's. And so if it's not the quality, what is it? It's that system that we talked about earlier. Accounting, marketing, sales, operations, right? We talked about starting a business from scratch. You must create all of these systems. Well, a franchise already has these systems in place. And if you want to find out how effective these systems are, what are you going to do? You're going to talk to the franchisees that use these systems every day. Another myth is that successful franchises emerge with no new competition. Absolutely not. Competition is fantastic. And this is not just related to franchising, but in terms of competition, whether you're starting a business from scratch or buying an existing business, competition shows that there is demand for that product or service. Now, as it relates to franchising, what franchising does is it creates consolidation So in order to meet that demand, again, it's all about the system. Okay, so we'll get a little bit deeper into costs. So a common myth is that franchises are expensive. Expensive is a very subjective word. What one person considers expensive might not be expensive to someone else. So when we take a big step back, about 2/3 of franchises fall in a total investment of about $250,000 and under, okay? What's most important first is knowing what investment level is realistic and responsible for you. So first we identify what investment level we have to work with, and then we look for the best fitting business, essentially that's as cheap as possible. Now, I'd mentioned before, it doesn't mean you need $200,000 or $250,000. What most franchisors are looking for is someone who can access about 25 to 30% of the total investment in liquidity. And then most of my clients finance the rest with a loan. Now, you might be surprised where you can access that liquidity, that cash injection. Can be personal savings, friends, relatives. A home equity line of credit might make sense for you. If it's a resale, there might be seller financing involved. But what surprises most people, and we have been doing this since the 70s, it's called the Rollover for Business Startup. The abbreviation is ROBS, ROBS. I think it's a terrible abbreviation, but here's what it is. So that was not a nice thing to say. Okay, here's what it is you can actually utilize a portion of your retirement toward the acquisition of a business without paying any taxes or penalties. And this is true for business acquisitions and resales just as much as it is for a franchise. Now, I am not saying cash out your retirement, because that's not what we're doing. I'm also not saying use all your retirement toward the acquisition of a business. I'm not a financial advisor. I can give you the names of those financing companies again that I mentioned at the beginning. But let's say, for example, most of your net worth is tied up in your retirement. And let's say your retirement just took a hit. Would you like to diversify? Because the retirement, many people's retirement funds are invested in an area where they have no control of the outcome. So let's say you've got $300,000 in your retirement account and you have no control over the return. Would it make sense for you to take maybe $40,000 of that $300,000 and move it into a different investment, which is your business? And you can use that as the cash injection, as liquidity. It's kind of a complicated thing. They're going to talk about it in great detail on Monday. I also have some financing trainings that have been recorded. They're about 30 minutes. So again, I just feel really, really strongly about getting you information. So let me know if you'd like that. Lastly, Kim, I hope this is okay, as I am a straight shooter. So I just say it like it is. Candidly, I would say 9 out of every 10 times I mentioned this to someone and they talk to their financial planner or financial advisor about it. Their financial planner or financial advisor has never heard of it or strongly advises against it. Now, I absolutely respect that. My next question is do they get paid based on where your money is invested? And if they stand to lose money when you roll your money into something that's an investment of you, something to be aware of. I've said too much. Another myth, high return requires a high investment. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Some people think that the more money you invest, the more money you can make, and that is absolutely not true. There is no correlation. As a matter of fact, these low cost, low overhead businesses that I talked about at the very beginning when I was talking about COVID-19 and I was talking about the businesses that tend to really thrive in uncertain economic times, low cost, low overhead businesses often have the highest margins. So there's no correlation between money in and money out. Also, huge misconception, the industry experience is required. Now, I will say this. If I had 10 or 20 years of experience in a specific industry, so let's say, for example, engineering, and I were looking at starting or buying a business, when I put myself in those shoes, I would probably look at a business where I had industry experience. However, when it comes to franchising, absolutely not. Franchisors are looking for someone with general business skills and the ability to learn the business system that gets results. So, general business skills. Are you good with people? Are you a good manager? Do you excel in leadership or maybe project management? Do you love initiating relationships and being the face of the business and being active in your community, right? There's all kinds of different hats that franchise owners wear. Another thing that makes you vulnerable if you get into a business or a franchise where you have industry experience is that you're vulnerable to thinking and acting like an employee instead of thinking and acting like an owner. So a franchisor wants someone who is going to use the franchise system, not the system that you did at Intel or Micron, but the system of the franchise system. So you guys, nobody woke up one morning and said, gosh, I want to own a franchise. At least not to my knowledge. It could be wrong, but I don't think anybody's done it. But owning a franchise can be a great fit if you need a new vehicle to get you to your goals, whether it's wanting more autonomy, more time with your family, the ability to decide when you work, when you don't work, and if you want more control over your income and create that income security. It is a great way to reduce risk and create income whether or not you have a job. I'm not bashing jobs at all. I'm just asking you, is a traditional job helping you reach your long-term goals? I would say jobs usually help us reach our short-term goals. We get that paycheck every 2 weeks, we pay our mortgage. Jobs don't always help us reach our long-term goals. So, royalties. You know, and you might look at some franchises and think, well, why should I pay royalties? I can do that myself. I get it. And, you know, maybe you can, truthfully. I will tell you that that's an indicator of somebody who would do well with a certain type of franchise. We work with this personality test that I'm going to give you here in a second. But anyway, royalties. So here's how I see royalties. A good franchisor, all right, a good franchisor, not all franchises are created equal. A good franchisor is actually going to lose money on you when they award you a franchise and you become part of this franchise family. Why? Well, because their support costs are really high and your royalties are really low. They actually go in the red. They are providing significant resources, personnel, support to get you up, trained, and running when your royalties are very low. Now, the idea is that they have really thoroughly screened you. And when they decided to award you a franchise, they believe that in the long term, when their support costs go down, that your royalties are going to go up because they believe that you are going to make money. And that means that they're going to make a little bit of money too. So essentially, it's a trade-off. You exchange some profits in the long term, absolutely, for some significant risk reduction in the short term. And franchises are not all the same. I know some people are afraid that they're going to get handcuffed by a franchisor, and they're not, you know, and the franchisor is like a dictator. I don't know. But there are some really flexible franchises, and there are some that are very robust. This assessment that I mentioned actually measures compliance. And what it would do is it would show us, are you someone who is highly compliant and feels actually really supported by robust systems, or are you somebody who feels handcuffed by robust systems. And therefore, you would do best in a franchise that has a lot more flexibility for innovation, or maybe you're so low on the compliance scale that we just shouldn't look at franchises at all. That's a possibility. There's some franchises with many units versus just a single location, new, well-established, expensive, inexpensive. It's all over the place. But I do caution you around the statistics. So in that franchise disclosure document that I told you about, that huge document, it's going to give you some significant information, but beware of the statistics. And here's an example. Let's say once upon a time, someone started a business, and in 10 years, they ended up with 5 locations of this business, and then they converted it to a franchise. Well, when you look at those 5 locations, they were all run by the founder. They were not necessarily run by 5 different franchisees. So if there's only 5 units in that entire franchise model, all run by the same person, is that going to give you a good indicator of how successful you can be, right? In every franchise model, there will be people that are successful and there will be people that are struggling. Only worry about your success. When you speak with franchisees, talk to both of them. I highly recommend talking to people that are successful, highly recommend talking to people that are struggling. Get a well-rounded perspective and input, and then ask yourself, where do I see myself? Who do I identify with? Who do I relate to? At the end of the day, just make sure this business is the right fit for you, and your family. It needs to be something that your family can get behind. But at the end of the day, it needs to be a fit for you. So it's an option if you want to get in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So I'm going to check the time here. Okay. So probably have I'm thinking 7 more minutes. And then we're going to get into some dialogue and Q&A. I talked to you about how looking for a job is very, very different than looking for a business. So with a job, it usually starts with a Google search, maybe some conversations with people in our network. We look and we see what skills they are hiring for. And then we write a resume that's focused on our skills and our experience. And our skills just being the sliver. My skill set, I'm this whole person. My skill set is just a sliver of who I am. So we put this on paper, we put down our experience. We can't have too much experience because then we're overqualified and we don't get hired, right? So all we have is this little piece of paper that speaks for us, and then we hope that we are chosen. We don't have any control in this. It's very passive. And it's very external to us. The thing about searching for a business is it's not something that can be Googled. And instead of just looking at this sliver of ourselves and of our skill set, we look at all of our experience and we look at ourselves as a whole. So first of all, I invite you to keep an open mind and separate the function of the business from the function of the owner. So I hear a lot of people say, I couldn't own a business unless I'm passionate about it. And I'm with you. I think passion is absolutely necessary in business ownership. I also think it needs to be realistically and responsibly directed. For example, passion in business ownership is not, I love sandwiches, so I'm gonna own a deli. I know that's silly, right? Passion in business ownership might be something like, I love bringing people together. I love serving the community. I love making people's lives better. I love challenge. I love to be challenged. I get bored easily. I like mental stimulation. I like the ability to scale and grow things, right? So align the role of the owner with the things that you have passion for. And ask yourself, what's important to me, right? Not what is important to the hiring manager. What is important to me? Time with my family, the ability to retire, right? the ability to go play golf when I want to go play golf. I don't know. What's important to you? Now, you can probably answer a lot of these questions, and I invite you to ask yourself a lot of these questions. And if you really, really, really just want to jumpstart it, I invite you to complete this online assessment. And you might be, there's some really great assessments out there. You might be familiar with DISC, StrengthsFinder, Myers-Briggs. Those are fantastic. This is proprietary to FranNet though, so unless you've worked with FranNet before, you probably haven't taken it. And what is unique about this is it provides insights into how your personality and your values system aligns with business ownership. Of course, we're going to look at skill set and core competencies, but what's more important in being successful in owning a business is who you are and what you value. I know that might come as a surprise. We actually, what FranNet does, so I work with about 200 thoroughly vetted, pre-screened boutique franchise businesses. And once a business is approved into our inventory, which we decline 5 out of every 6. Okay, so once that 1 out of 6 is approved, we actually give their top performing franchise owners the same assessment. And what we have found is that certain personality types and value systems ultimately predict how successful someone might be in a given business. It's pretty cool. It's like eHarmony, if you will. Like, I don't do matchmaking in my personal life, but that's what I do professionally. It's pretty cool. So these are some screenshots of the kinds of things that you got. If you decide to take the assessment, you'll get a full 11-page. It's a very comprehensive report. And again, you guys, all of these services, these resources are free. I'll give you a URL here in a moment, and I'll also email it to you if you want. And after you take the profile, if you want, we can sit down and create a business model. And this is an example. And I see this like a template. So remember, I know so many people just want to get online and start looking for franchises, but that's just not, it's just not what I recommend. Is before we start looking out there, because that's what we do for a job, we're going to look in here and we're going to really clarify, what do I need the business to provide for it to make sense for me? How much time do I want to spend on it? How much money do I have to invest? Who do I want to spend my time with? Whether it relates to other professionals or other employees. And remember, whereas with a job, we wait to be chosen, with a business, we look at who we are, we create a template or a spec for what we want, and then we go out and we decide if the business fits what we're looking for. We choose. This is one of the biggest financial investments that most people ever make. And if it's a franchise, you might be signing a 5, 7, or 10-year franchise agreement. I mean, that's longer than some marriages, right? So we want to be really, really clear on what we're doing and who we're engaged in business with. We'll talk about your transferable skills. We'll talk about your short and long-term goals. So for example, my son is 11 years old. If I were just now buying a franchise, I might ask myself, okay, in 5 years, he's going to be 16. He might be driving. How much money do I want to be earning when he's 16? How much flexibility do I want to have? And what I would do is I would call franchise owners who have owned that business for 5 years, and I'd see if they have the flexibility and the financial return that I'm looking to make. We're increasing predictability, decreasing the risk. This is what a 4-step research process looks like. If you decide to research your franchise, whether you do it on your own or you do it with me or another FranNet associate, it's entirely up to you. The only difference with doing it with me or a FranNet associate is, one, we will introduce you to pre-screened franchises instead of it just being somebody that you Googled. And 2, I really put you in the driver's seat of your research. I have weekly strategy calls with all of my clients. We're going to look at, what are you learning? We look at various models so that we can compare and contrast what we're learning and looking at. We strategize. What do we like? What concerns do we have? Am I seeing any red flags? What information do we still need to ask? I do want to say this, which surprises a lot of people, is Steps 1 and 2 involve talking with the franchisor and talking with as many franchisees as we need to get to a point where we can either rule out that franchise and say it's not a fit, or if possible, we might get to the point where we are about 80 to 90% sure that, yeah, I'm like 80 to 90% sure this is the right business for me. What I love about this is that we can get 80 to 90% sure by spending time, but not spending money. I don't want to spend money until it makes sense to spend money. So if you're about 80 to 90% sure you found the right business or franchise for you, if it's a franchise, you might want to go visit the franchisor, travel, meet them face to face. And then they're usually looking for a yes or no decision within about a week, maybe 2. And if you decide yes, then I would recommend working with a franchise attorney. I work with a great franchise attorney in Boise that I'm happy to refer you to review the franchise agreement and also get connected with a CPA, get your entity created, etc. Now, this process generally takes, this research process generally takes 3 to 4 months. If you want to go faster, you can go faster. If you want to go slower, you can go slower. Remember, we talked about those 3 buckets where some people are hitting the brakes, tapping the brakes, and going full speed ahead. The thing that I invite you to ask yourself is, okay, where do I want to be as it relates to business ownership? Where do I want to be in the fall? Where do I want to be at the first of the year? And then work your way back. If you are one of those people that says, I want my doors open in the fall and I want to be ready to service pent-up demand for, I don't know, haircuts, I'm making this up because I don't know, then we need to pace your research accordingly. If you're one of those people that says, I want to get in on this disinfecting and defogging offices, then we would need to move our research quicker. It's entirely up to you. You're in control of the process. So throughout your research, just ask yourself these questions. Is the franchisor system, the investment, the risk level, are they acceptable to you? Not are they acceptable to your brother-in-law or your dad or me? Are they acceptable to you? And these are some fantastic resources, regardless if you're starting a business from scratch, buying an existing business. More Than Just Franchise and eMyth Revisited are fantastic resources. Specifically, if you're interested in franchising, I personally give a copy of Street Smart Franchising to all of my clients. It's just that valuable of a resource. And every single time my clients come back to me and say, so glad you gave me that book because blah, 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 blah. So next steps, if you want to take that assessment that I mentioned, and frankly, if you have 0 interest in a franchise, I really encourage you to take advantage of this resource. It can save you so much time and energy. And in my experience, it's not going to tell you anything that you don't already know about yourselves, but it might provide clarity, validation, and application. How do I apply what I already know and believe to be true about myself? How do I apply that to business ownership? Also, if you're like, I don't know about this assessment, but I've got some questions that maybe I don't want to ask in a group setting, please note my contact information. Give me a call, shoot me an email. I love talking to people. I love hearing about your goals. I love helping you get pointed in the right direction, whatever that may be. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Kim, if you're able to unmute people, that would be great. I am going to look at some of the questions. Okay, one question from earlier. Yes, we will be sending you all a link to the recording. No worries if you're late, you're going to get a link to the recording. I totally understand getting stuck on a call. Glad you were excited. I hope it was worth it. Well, good. I thank you. I'm glad that I'm personable. I mean, business is all about people. Some people approach business as it's transactional. I am a firm believer that business is all about people. So thank you for that. Any other questions, or even guys, if you want to push back on me, if you're like, hey, I don't agree, this is the time to get real and candid. So I invite anything, just make sure you're not muted.
I have
Okay.
unmuted everybody, so you should all be able to talk if you'd like, by all means. By the way, Emily, great job. It's so nice to sit through. It's so hard to do these classes virtually and still remain animated and everything when you don't have the faces looking back at you. So good job.
Thank you. Thank you. I just imagine all these wonderful people. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pamela. Okay, I may have had a little bit more caffeine than usual this morning, but not much.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the secret, is needing more caffeine.
Oh my gosh, right?
Okay, good to know. So
I can't do
excellent.
too much caffeine. I can't drink coffee. I just grit my teeth, but I did have a little extra yerba
You
mate
know,
today.
if I had to give up caffeine, everybody, all lives would be in danger. I'm sorry. Um, there's just so many bad things that would happen if I had to give up caffeine.
You know, yeah.
I don't drink it for me. I drink it for your safety. I'm just saying.
There you go. Keep it up. Keep it up. You know, I do think, thank you for some of your very kind comments. I do think this is a great opportunity to illustrate a point as it relates to passion in business. You can probably tell I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. I am not passionate about franchising. So how can I be with FranNet and provide all this free stuff if I'm not passionate about franchising? Well, this is a great opportunity to illustrate that point about passion being realistically and responsibly applied. I am passionate about working with people. I love working with people one-on-one. I love saying, who are you and what do you value and what do you want to get out of this life? And how can I help you get there? And it just so happens that one of the solutions I provide is business and franchise ownership for helping you reach your goals. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions or anything that Emily didn't cover? It seems like she did a pretty thorough job. It's the first time in a while I've sat through this presentation, so it's nice to have a refresher for me. So
Good. And if nobody has questions and we wrap up 12 minutes early and that's 12 fewer minutes that you look at a screen today, I'm okay with that too.
that's fine. You know, I don't know where you're at. The sun is shining. It's a little windy, although I heard like in Mountain Home it snowed. So, I think there's a wide range of things going on, but Boise seems to be pretty pleasant right at the moment. So I encourage you all just to walk outside, even if it's cold.
Oh, I can't wait to get back.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to
hug people again.
I know, right? I ran into somebody at Costco and we looked at each other like, can we hug? And we just hugged. We just broke all the rules and hugged right in front of everybody.
No, we did the elbow thing. I did the same thing. I was like, hi, elbow hug. So, we miss you too, Pamela.
Pamela says she misses you.
Aw, I miss you too. So
thank you, Steve. I'm glad you learned a few things. How to friend the parking lot at Costco. We're so rebellious. I love it.
You rebel.
Well, okay
you.
then.
Yeah, I think we're good.
So here's what I will do. I don't want to email you guys. I'm sure your inboxes are full, and I don't want to send you a bunch of information you don't want. I will just, my daughter yelled at me for doing that. What I will do is I'll email everybody a link to this assessment if you want to check it out. And we'll send you a link to this recording if you want to revisit any information. Or if you want to share it with your spouse or a family member, that's pretty common. And since I mentioned it, I'm going to include, or Kim, maybe I can send it to you, the link to the financing webinar, because I know you guys have one tomorrow.
Yeah,
that is
on the COVID-19
really popular.
It's been very popular. So the COVID-19 webinar that we're doing is, basically going over the EIDL and the PPP and what's available, and probably not some
Kim,
great
you're
news
pausing on me.
Am I pausing? Huh, that's weird. Okay. my internet connection is unstable, much like its owner, I guess. So anyhow, we did get notification.
You cut out for some of that, but I think I got the gist of it.
Gist of it is, they were doing that on the PPP, the idle and whatnot, but we just got notification that all the funds at this point in time are allocated. So if you're not already in the system, it's probably going to be a bit before there's more funds. Now, I do know that Congress is currently working on another funding package. So if you didn't get in on this one, all hope is not lost. So please go ahead and I'll send you the link to that. What I'm going to do is, this is being recorded. As soon as it finishes, I will upload it to a YouTube channel, and I'll send you all the link, and I will send you Emily's contact information. And Emily, if you want to send me your stuff, and then I'll just send it all in one email, and that way we're just not flooding them with everything. And I'll make sure that your stuff is in there, so that they can contact you. I'll copy you on the email so that you have it, and it'll be later on this afternoon, because it does take a little while for the video to render up to YouTube. So it'll be at least an hour to an hour and a half before I can get it out there to you. So
great.
And with that,
so, and Kim, in that case, because the financing webinar on Monday covers something different, is it's going to cover the rollover for business startup for anybody interested in utilizing retirement funds. And it will provide information on not the PPPL and blah, 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 but the SBA lending program, like where the 6 months of payments. So I'll include that link, because it sounds like it's complementary to what you're doing tomorrow.
Absolutely. I think anything that, so yeah, please do send me that, and I will be happy to throw that out there, because like I said, we just found out this morning that the fund is tapped for the time being. And I say that, and I don't want everybody to be like, oh, the world's ending, because it's not, there will be, I fully 100% believe that there will be more funding. I also know that not everybody who was allocated the money is going to take it. So there will still be money available. And so I really want you just not to lose hope, because that way lies madness. Okay. So, and we want to give you all of the resources that we possibly can to get through this in the best way possible. So please don't, like I said, don't lose hope. Don't just say that it's all going away and stuff. So, but look for an email. I will include all of these great links and stuff. And please look out. We also have some other trainings about coming up about, now that you've gotten past the problem of funding, what do I do? How do I revamp my operations? What things should I be focusing on in light of a impending recession? So we've got a lot of really great opportunities and trainings to make sure that our small businesses are taken care of, because I think this has illustrated for me something that I've always known, but I think for the general populace, is that small businesses are truly the backbone of our economy, and they have to survive and they have to be successful. And I've never, in my 21 years of working in this industry, had it illustrated so vividly. And I think now everybody's understanding that too. And I'm sorry that it took a pandemic to have that happen, because that's not my hope. But by the same token, I'm happy for my small business owners that they are finally going to get the recognition that they have always deserved. So that being said, also, Courtney Lewis is with the city of Mountain Home. And for those of you who are in Elmore County, if any of you are, please don't hesitate. She's sending out a lot of really great information as well. And, trying to, help all of those businesses in her area. So by all means, look at all the resources at your disposal. And if you aren't in Elmore County, if you're someplace else, those counties have resources. And if you don't know what they are, then let me know. I either know what they are, or I know who to contact to find out what they are. So happy to help. That's what we're here for. We're all in this together. And Courtney just chatted to everybody what her email is and what the phone number is. So by all means, please jump on this opportunity, because we don't operate in a vacuum. and we need to do this together, even though we're apart, so to speak. I love saying that, we're together but apart. So, and with that, it's 1:26. We're at our time, and so it was lovely to have this time with you all. And look for emails from me before too long. And with that, I guess I will say goodbye. Right?
Thank you so much. Thanks, Courtney and Kim.